Hey, Gary, what
Yes,
do you
sir.
do to improve your jiu-jitsu off the mat?
I like to review. And the way I do that is if I go to a seminar, usually 50% of it falls out of my head and I can't remember anything. So I like to go back and review those seminars at a later date.
Yeah, I wish there was a easy way to retain some of that information, whether we are in a class or a seminar, particularly seminar when they are longer and more complex. There's more layers as the instructors are showing techniques. I wish there was a way so we can go back and review all the details. Is there?
Yeah, I think there is. And the way I do it is RŌL TV. Tons of stuff to review. And it's really a great platform for anything you need.
We've built this platform for over 2 years now, over 500 videos, anywhere between techniques, expert lessons, and we have huge guests like Christian Woodman C and Sophia McDormand and many others. And then also all the live events recorded at the Academy are fully available on RŌL TV. So if you're looking to improve your jiu-jitsu or you're looking to review things from the class or seminar, RŌL TV is a perfect platform for you to gain access to. Go to RŌLAcademy.tv, create your account, gain the access, and continue your jiu-jitsu journey.
Yeah, check it out. It works wonders. Growing up, Melisa Haueter had a rebel spirit and what she describes as anger management issues. It wasn't until she was a young adult that she found a positive outlet for that rebelliousness and anger when she started training and competing in Jiu Jitsu. Listen as Melisa talks about what it was like training back in the early 2000s with legends like Chris Haueter and Cindy Omatsu, how she and Chris started Combat Base Club, how they opened their California home for huge impromptu BJJ training sessions, and how her and Chris have had to adjust their business and personal lives during the challenges of 2020. And stick around after the episode to see if you are the newest winner of the Fuji gi giveaway. Here's RŌL Radio with a teacher, BJJ instructor, businesswoman, entrepreneur, and mother, Melisa Haueter.
Welcome to RŌL Radio.
And we're live. Gary, how are you?
I'm good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah. I have something exciting. Recently, we were able to give away our first Fuji gi, and that was a great gift that we could give away. And all you have to do to get one of those is go to the RŌLRadio.com/belt, take the survey, you're automatically enrolled. And we announce those at the end of the month, at the end of an episode. So definitely tune in and check it out.
It wasn't you, was it?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I
just-
have my
I'm just
inside
check-
track to get my
I'm
free
just-
geeks. I don't have to steal.
I'm just
from,
checking if you didn't
guests.
steal one.
No, not at all.
All right, let's get to the show. Now, this is going to be an interesting episode, at least in my view. There's not many couples that train jiu-jitsu, let alone black belt couples. So we have Melisa Haueter in the house. Melisa, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
We recently spoke with Chris, and he recommended you. Matter of fact, he said a lot of good things about you, and he says, no, you have to talk to her. It's not because she's my wife, but because she has some cool stuff to talk about. So right away we were trying to schedule this, and we here we are. So tell us how all this started. Like, why jiu-jitsu? Your story is quite interesting, actually. Why jiu-jitsu? How did you step on the mat for the very first time?
Well, I really thought I'd seen jujitsu before. I had a friend when I was about 19. Her little brother was showing me some techniques that he learned, but I never thought that I could walk into a jujitsu academy and be like, "Hey, I'm here to take class." Especially back then, there weren't very many females on the mat. I think that the jujitsu culture was a lot more intimidating. Um, Talking about 1998ish. Then I happened to meet Chris in 2003, and he was a jujitsu black belt, and I was dating him. So a couple of nights he ran off, and I was like, "Where's this guy going?" He's like, "I gotta go train," and I'm like, "What is this training?" nonsense. So he invited me over to his house for dinner, and he had a small 1-car garage that was matted. And he said, "Hey, you want me to show you some moves?" So he showed me an arm lock from the guard, and I was like, "You have to take me to class. I got to go with you." So I started going with him, and that's how I started. I just tagged along, went to all of his classes, and before you know it, about 6 months into my training, he set me up with Cindy Omatsu, who's the first American female black
Black
belt.
belt, yep. Mhm.
And she became my instructor as well. So I had 2 instructors. I had Chris, who I would train with several days a week, and Cindy, who I would train with several days a week. She had a small women's program, and the women would come and go, but I just kept showing up. A lot of times I would get privates because a lot of women weren't coming to class. It's just how it was. And so I really feel like I benefited a lot from that time being a white belt and having these 2 highly skilled black belts to be my mentors, get both the perspective, the male pressure perspective, and the female, coaching me through those spots where it's different for women because we don't have the strength and our bodies are structured differently. So I got to get both perspectives, and the rest was kind of history.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the female part in a moment, but I'm interested really. You're talking about 98, so this is early late 90s, early 2000s, right? All of this is unfolding. Jiu-jitsu is not as present back then, not as present as it is right now, and so female presence is almost non-existent. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but there's really not many women training, and there's only a handful black belt females. So this is like you are digging into a gold mine at that point. Like, do you know what you getting your hands into? Like, do you know you have Chris and then you have her, right? Like, these are your instructors. I mean, this is gold.
Yeah, I had no idea really. I was really clueless actually. I had never been involved in any martial arts, really any sports. I was a cheerleader. Um, I have always had a hard time with anger management. So I think that's one of the reasons why I really gravitated to a sport that was so aggressive, and I really felt like I could get that like angst out that was inside of me. I've also kind of tended towards being a rebel and doing something that other people aren't doing. I had a guy tell me that I'm not a rebel, but I'm a trailblazer, and I thought that that was kind of cute. Um, but it was very attractive to me to be doing this and to have both of those perspectives. But I had no idea how special these people were until
Mhm.
years later. When I could really appreciate it later on after I'd been in the game for a long time. It just was what it was. I didn't really think much about it. I
Do-
just thought, women don't really like this, and people come and go, and most people quit before they get their blue belt, and
yeah.
this isn't for everybody. People don't like to be touched and sat on and sweat on, but for me it was something that I needed. It was something that I craved. I used to drink a lot of alcohol, and I would always end up trying to get in fights and wrestling people and doing all this stuff, and I didn't drink alcohol anymore, and I needed something where I could still be that physical. I used to drink and I would fall down and get all bruised on my legs and everything. The same thing happens in jujitsu, but without the alcohol, I could wake up in the morning and go to training. So this was just something I really needed to do.
Do you think that leadership was important, or do you think this kind of leadership is important for a student? Sometimes students find themselves in these situations where they have phenomenal instructor and they don't realize the magnitude what they have, and maybe the appreciation what they have at their hands is just not there. Do you think that's important?
Well, I mean, I think everybody's different, right? And everybody needs a different presence in their life. With Chris and Cindy, I really, and I'm talking about in the beginning, I was just learning, and it was all about learning. But there became this turning point when I did my first competition where I became really competitive, and I didn't even know I had that inside of me. And it was all self-directed and self-motivated. Yes, my coaches were there for me and they would push me and things like that, but I didn't have a competition team, you know? sometimes another guy I knew was doing the competition, or a guy I trained with was doing the competition. But I wasn't training at one of these academies where there's this head coach kind of guiding everyone along and making sure everybody's on task. And, that's not my experience with jiu-jitsu. My experience is that whatever I wanted out of it, I had to seek it. And if I needed something, I needed to ask for it. So neither Chris nor Cindy are that kind of coach that are really, trying to take the team to the next level or something like that, if that makes sense. We've never had an academy. We've taught at a few different gyms and had small programs, but Chris, he is really in his heart, as I see him, he is the former competitor that did it for himself and was inspired by the Machados and other mentors that he had at the time. But and I have no idea exactly what it was like back then. I know that it was a bunch of rough and tumble guys, and they were training every night, and there were no moms in the class or old people, which I consider myself now over 40. I'm an old person and a mom, and I'm training like that. You didn't see that back then, right? When he was training, that's 1988 to like 1996 when he got his black belt.
Yep.
And beyond those times. I mean, I didn't meet him till 2003, right? So he had already been a black belt for a while when I met him. Yeah, so I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well,
Me too.
I wanted to back up a minute. You said you didn't know you were a competitive person, but do you think so? When you started competing, obviously you had made some huge life changes prior to that. Do you think it was that rebel attitude or those anger issues? Now having a positive outlet, it's like, oh, it's manifested now through this competition.
Yes, definitely. I definitely felt that way. And, I felt like I really wanted to show up and do these competitions and how to get better at them, because never having played sports, I wasn't a natural competitor. I went to my first tournament and the girl threw me on the floor and arm locked me in about 2 seconds. I was like, whoa, that was really intense. And then I remember having like a match where I was a blue belt and the other girl was a white belt, and it was going into like double overtime. And I was like, how could I let this white belt beat me? And she ended up like beating me on a sweep in overtime, where it was dumb. And I got so mad, and I was like making a big deal about it, and Chris chewed me out, and I'm crying. And I mean, I still, when I go to a competition and I see a girl crying, I was like, I used to be her. And like over the years of doing that, I competed about 10, 11 years. Over the years of doing that, that all went away, and I was able to like have some humility and learn how to just play the game and stuff like that. And I really started to enjoy it. When I was newer at it, I don't think I enjoyed it as much. It was more just something to conquer. And Chris really back then would put a strong emphasis on how competition makes you better at jiu-jitsu. He doesn't do that so much anymore. But when we were younger, it was, if you compete, that's where you really get to test your skills. You get to see what you really know and what you really need to work on. And so I was just ready to show up and put myself out there.
Do you think that comes from the challenge matches that he gone through in the beginning of his journey, or where's the competition drive comes from?
Well, he was a wrestler, and then when he was before jiu-jitsu, he was experimenting with some professional Muay Thai, and then he found jiu-jitsu. And when he moved to Florida for a while, and there was really no one doing jiu-jitsu, and so he started showing up at judo tournaments, and just like winning judo tournaments, like he was a purple belt or something, by arm locking people, flying arm bars or something. And he is very competitive. I never knew I was competitive. I think he always knew he was competitive. He comes from a very competitive family. His father was like an athlete with basketball and volleyball, and his sister, and he always stayed away from group sports. He and I both kind of have that in common, where we like to do things a little bit more independently. We like to kind of it's that whole personality difference between the team player. Neither one of us are really good team players. It's really sad. It's hard to be married when neither one of you are a good team player.
I think you guys will get through it. It's I think you'll be fine.
But listen, you touch on something really important, right? You say 11 years of competition, and it was a rough time on the beginning, not only from the perspective of understanding what the game is, what is it all about, but also, going through the skill set discovery and the understanding the jiu-jitsu itself, and then the adrenaline rush and the anxiety that comes with all of this. And what I'm getting at, there's so many people that literally quit jiu-jitsu after their first or second competition. They just, this didn't go my way, I'm done, this is not for me. And you talk about getting submitted by an armbar in a matter of seconds, and you're like, wait, no. Whatever just happened, I got to do this again. And you go back, and you go back, and it's a very different mindset. Where is that coming from?
I think it's just inherent in my personality. Ever since I was a small child, I've been a person who has struggled. So, as a small child, I had a lot of depression and anxiety, um, just never really having self confidence, not feeling comfortable in my skin. I had severe social anxiety all through elementary school. It's part of the thing that led me to excessive alcohol consumption, because that gives you that sense of relief from all of those
Mm-hmm.
issues. It's a way to self medicate. So, and also in school when I was young, I couldn't focus. I have a little bit of the ADD, and I didn't know how to focus my brain on schoolwork, and I was called out a lot for it. I was overweight. So let's not let we can't forget about that. I was extremely overweight as a child. Um, so struggling through something and getting better at it is something I'm very familiar at. I learned how to focus in school eventually, and did very well, and ended up going to UCLA, and having straight A's and all those kinds of things in high school. Um, and when I was a child, I was overweight, and I kind of went the other way too, had some issues with like anorexia and going back and forth with that, but eventually figured out how to be a fit human being. So all of these struggles, when I went to the tournament, of course I wasn't going to be good at it at the first time, because there's nothing that I came into this world just good at. Everything has been work for me. So I think because of that, I could see, yeah, that was really hard, but that's just something that I've got to work out more. And never in jujitsu, even to this day, I've been a black belt for 9 years, have I seen a move and picked it up fast if it's something new to me. Everything that I learn has to be drilled and practiced and broken down. I'll be a partner with a girl in class who's a white belt, and she's instructing me through the technique. This is just how my brain works.
Mhm.
But once I get
Yeah.
stuff, it comes out pretty solid, I think, in the end.
And I think
So
that's the beautiful part about jiu-jitsu, that all of our brains work differently. Plus, we have different personalities. We see things different. The perception is very different when it comes to techniques and these concepts. And like I know myself, so similar to you, I have to understand what is happening, like mechanically. I need to understand why things move this way, why are we doing this, not just follow the steps. The steps I forget, and my OCD takes over, and it's like there has to be a logic. If there's no logic, it doesn't work for me. So I find it very interesting that you mentioned similar things. How do you find that today students are able to overcome some of these obstacles? Because let's be honest, the world 20 years ago was very different than it is today. Today, somebody starting jiu-jitsu, they might be facing the similar obstacles, from school perspective, maybe overweight, or maybe there's alcohol, other substances, right? But the world is very different. We are dealing with this whole social media thing, and it's the way how we learn is even different. How do you see that current individuals starting jiu-jitsu can overcome some of these obstacles?
well, I've coached a few people back here in our garage, and I had one gentleman in particular who brought his daughter to me, and he wanted me to help mentor her, and she was about 10 years old, and he was on the sidelines, and he was so excited about her and what she was doing and what she was learning. And I said, I'll coach your daughter, but you need to come to class too. And so, I coached him all the way up until he received his purple belt. And over that time, he had lost weight. He had got off of all these different medications, not to mention that I think when he started with me, he was about 56 years old. So he was really coming in and able to do something that he always wanted to do with me that maybe he wouldn't have been able to do if he just showed up to another gym.
Yeah.
So, or depending on the environment, So I think that in this day where I live, within a couple miles of here, there's probably 20 different places you can go train. So I think that's a really good point, that you have to find a place that's going to support you where you're at. If you go in and there's a bunch of roided out dudes, and you're, overweight, out of shape, whatever it is, it might not be the best fit for you. Mm-hmm. You might need to go to a different place that, that might support you. And that can change over time too. What you need can change. My friend is not training with me anymore. He may have moved on and is training with someone else now. I've seen that on social media. And also, we're also in the middle of a pandemic. So that also contributes a little bit to not seeing people as much.
And all that is okay. I think that's what's important to really underline here. All that is okay. And I'm a big fan of, and I know you share the same vision because I heard you talk about it publicly. It's training, and similar with Chris, training everywhere, cross training. You can't learn everything from one instructor. It's physically impossible. You're learning what they know, but there's so much more. And they think in one direction. You might be thinking of something completely else. So what you talk about is not only finding a good place or fitting place for you, not only beyond that, you need to find a fitting instructor that is willing to take you on and really share the knowledge. But now beyond that, it is your responsibility to take this to the next level. It is your job, not the coaches, not the instructor's job to teach you. It's your job to seek that and take it to the next level and really take the responsibility for your education, right?
That is exactly how I was raised in jiu-jitsu. You just summed it up. It was my responsibility. I was lucky. I had two people mentoring me. And, and yes, I paid my coach for privates in the beginning. Cindy, I did private lessons with her. And that also helped to increase that relationship. For somebody that struggles with ADD and other issues, social anxiety, private lessons might be a really good way to go. And that's something that both Chris and myself offer. We don't have an academy, but we do take people under our wing, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So I think that is out there, and a lot of people don't know that that's out there. And sometimes, maybe people don't have the resources to afford private lessons with some world champion, but they might be able to afford private lessons with somebody who's lesser known, but still has really good, solid, fundamental jiu-jitsu knowledge, like myself.
Well, it's not only that, but I want to bring up, because we recently had this conversation with somebody else, but what's important also to understand is that a lot of people don't understand the value of the private lesson. Like monetary and the financial investment, that's whether it costs $500 or $50, it doesn't matter. A lot of people don't understand the value that comes with you and me being on a mat. You have my undivided attention, or I have your undivided attention, and we can pick this apart. We can really understand and comprehend what is happening here and how we can improve you.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this morning, Chris and I, we were on a Zoom thing with people signing in and stuff, watching us. And basically he was giving me a private lesson.
Yep. So,
and he was, because I don't understand a certain aspect of something, he does all of these things that are just like, oh, it's like these small details, a way that you move your hip, a way that you slide your hand to open things up and set things up. And it's like magic to me. I love to learn it. Like these days I'm a lot faster and more agile than he is, but he has all these little things that could just help my game, especially as I age and those attributes start to go away. You need those little details, 100%.
Hold on. Did you just say that you beat Chris up?
Well,
I want to understand. I want to make sure we understand this correctly here.
sometimes
She either said she beats him up or he's old, one or the other. I don't know which one it was.
who's hurting more that day,
Uh-huh.
right? If my body's hurting more, he usually wins. If his body's hurting more, which is more often, because he's 14 years older than me,
Yeah.
so more often his body hurts more. So I think that's why I win.
Wow, that's a good spot to be in. Listen, let's switch the gear a little bit to the female concept, because that's really what I want to pick your brain on. Again, even today, 2021, there's more, but there's not many female black belts. And even if there are, they are not as accessible as the male female black belt. So that's one. Two, the amount of women training today, again, it's growing. It's significantly more than it used to be 20 years ago, but it's not. I mean, the percentage is what would you say? What's the percentage female versus male training in jiu-jitsu globally?
I mean, is it 5 or 10? Even that might
Right.
Yeah, I
maybe
don't think it's 10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's minimal, right? So how in the world do you ladies deal with training? That's one. I know it's struggle for a lot of them, and how do you adapt to some of these situations where you have to deal with your training partners, one being stronger than you, most of the time being heavier than you? How do you deal with some of these things? Talk about that.
Well, first of all, I think that if you some women can maybe only train with women, but I don't think that that's as realistic. Um, when I was a lower belt, when I was a blue and purple, there weren't hardly any women, and a lot of times I'll go to other gyms and things, and there's still maybe 2, 3, 4 women out of class of 20 or 30. And I make it kind of a point now when I go to a gym and there's women there to look for the women, to try to partner up with them, to make sure I roll with them, because I think that it's important. I always had that woman, that female presence, because I had Cindy, and with Cindy came Felicia O and some other women that were in her circle, So yeah, I don't know how it is for women these days when they are training, if they're able to find a women's only class, even to do in supplementing their other training.
Do you think that training with women only is actually beneficial, or is it hurting them in the long run?
Well, I think for me, I needed to train with men as well, and I still do. Most of my training partners are still men. Through the pandemic, I have rolled with a female one time in the last year, and that was Casey, my black belt. Casey, who came up one time to roll with me. Other than that, I've been rolling with Chris and a couple of other guys here. Um, and prior to that, I would roll with, I have a black belt and a brown belt female under me that I would roll with. And there's an academy down the way that I would go to, and there's about 5 women over there that I would roll with, but everyone else is male. And I think that there's a lot to learn from the right training partners. Obviously, if you just get with a guy, like I've rolled with a guy before that was angry at his sister because his sister used to beat him up. He told me this after he hurt me. That he just didn't know how to roll nice with the woman. I'm like, do you know how to roll nice with a man? Because it's pretty much the same thing.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, if someone has, whether you're male or female, if someone has 50 plus pounds on you, you're going to have to adjust your game if you don't want to hurt them, I think. I also think that as a female, my bones are a little different. My bone structure is definitely a little different. And I feel like my male counterparts can handle more compression and slamming and jerking than maybe I can. I started having knee injuries, excessive knee injuries at the age of 30. I've probably sprained my knees like 9 times. Most of my guy friends have not had that problem. And it could be because there's more with our hormones and everything, and the hyper flexibility. There's lots of different issues that women come across, not to mention after you have babies and things just change and move around, and yeah, it's a lot. But one of my main points is that if you don't like being in close proximity with smelly, stinky men, then maybe jujitsu isn't the right choice, because that's kind of what we do. And
That was a very politically correct statement.
well, I'm not like one to be politically correct
No,
per
but
se.
you bring up a very valid point. First of all, jiu-jitsu is not for everybody. And I said this on this show and publicly out there. Jiu-jitsu is not for everybody. And anybody who says that it is, I don't know. That person and I, we would just not agree. It just, some people don't find jiu-jitsu mechanically, fitting, and they don't find it even pleasant. Like, it doesn't work for everybody. And then we take the layer of the female, and not every female would want to roll with heavier and sweaty and guys, even in general, right? So it's not for everybody, but how do you make that work? So you're a female, you've never done jiu-jitsu, you walk into an academy, and you are the only one, and there's 20 guys. What do? You don't train?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Like for me, I've always craved human contact. I think that's something about people who roll, that we want to touch each other. We just do. And it doesn't have to be like a sexual thing, right? Because it's not, I
Not.
hope. I mean, sometimes it is. When
We
I'm
are
rolling
just,
with
I like to
friends,
think we are just natural huggers.
yeah, right? I mean, but it's not like I want to go around hugging everybody, because
Right.
remember, I have social anxiety. So I used to get anxious for like the first 8 years I trained, when I would be driving to the academy, like, who am I going to train with? What's going to happen? How's everybody's attitude going to be? Are they going to be nice to me? Like, because I have this social anxiety. So doing jujitsu gave me permission to be close to people without having to like talk to them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So it helped me tremendously with my social anxiety, because I show up, I go to the class, I sit on the mat, I just kind of mind my own business, and somebody's probably going to partner up with me. Or if the coach has any sense at all, they're going to be like, hey, partner up with her, because I would be the last person to ask somebody to be my partner. And I'm talking about, 18 years ago or whatever.
Mhm.
Or Chris would always be like, hey, so and so. He'd pick some light guy, or one time he picked some heavy guy, and the guy like pressed my chest in, and I had to go get like a shot so I could move because my sternum was collapsed or something. I was a brand new white belt. I'm just a glutton for punishment. I'm a little bit crazy. I find pleasure in pain, and that's part of it too. If you're somebody who gets ouchies and doesn't like pain very much, haircut on, and
Yeah.
this is not for you. You've got to find some pleasure in the pain, because I'll tell you, like, especially as I'm getting older, and the weather, when it's cold, when it's colder outside, and I'm talking about below 60, like,
Right.
my joints are aching.
Don't even start us on this, okay? Below
Yeah.
60
This
is not
smashing
cold,
me.
okay? Below
This is
60 is not
smashing
cold.
me. My arms aren't working. I'm like, oh, if I could just get my arms out of here, I'd be okay, because this is hurting my shoulders. And
Yeah,
yeah.
if nothing frustrates me more than like when I'm at home with the family and somebody's like, ow, ow. And I'm like, oh, you don't know what ow means. You have no clue. Yeah. Going back to like training with guys, I feel like the flip side is super important too. And I'd like to maybe, if you have a thought on this, that men should really train with women, because it gives you an opportunity to go with somebody whose technique is probably going to be what they use more than their strength. And you're going to be going with somebody who's quite possibly faster, who's going to fit into those smaller spaces, and who's going to be doing things that you technically don't do. And if you are a decent training partner as the male in that situation, you're going to have to adjust your game to not use your strength, to not use your size. Do you think that same way? Do you think differently? Does it matter?
I do think that men could gain a lot from rolling with women and focusing on their technique. Chris always taught us to try to remove our strength and say, you can always add it in later, but let's take it out and let's learn the techniques and the movement, so that, strength is something that changes. That's something that I see very apparently in my husband and myself. Our strength has changed, but the technique can be timeless, right? So, a man going with a woman and trying to focus on his technique, whether the woman's a brand new white belt or an experienced seasoned black belt, focusing on technique could hurt no one. And in fact, even if they're rolling with their other males, just focusing on their technique, I think could help their game to improve and to withstand the test of time.
You know what else is interesting? And this is just being on a mat for 20 years. What I've noticed actually is that training with guys, this is my personal view. Training with guys give me a perspective of being technical, and obviously, the strength and power is always involved. But the moment I train with a female, they move in different directions. They use their body differently because they have to. And that is very different to what guys do. And in that sense, that challenges me technically. I have to pay more attention to spaces that I typically don't pay attention to because I don't have to. Do you see where I'm going? So it's changing these two, training with male and female for both sides. I think it's critical to your success. Now, there's a level of comfort and other things that we have to, and culture wise and community wise and all the other factors that have to be considered into all of this. But what is, I think, very critical, if there are any females listening to this, like it is so critical to train with both. You have to train with male. You have to. Otherwise, you're not doing yourself justice. And then if we even start talking about the self-defense factor, why are we learning self-defense for females? It's not because other female will attack you. It's because the male will attack you, right? That's the vulnerable part of it. And how are you going to be ready for that if you don't train with them? I don't know. It's just, for me, it all makes sense in that direction. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, if any woman came to me for mentorship, I would highly encourage her to train with men. I think there's nothing more confidence boosting than to be able to control and submit a man as a small female. I mean, that's something that I think has boosted my confidence just when I'm out in the world. Like, go ahead, try to attack me. Like I deal with this all day long, like, not that I want to get attacked. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, it's just a little bit of an attitude where I'm pretty sure I could handle myself with the untrained man. I'm pretty sure I'd be able to get away. I'm not going to stay and try to fight somebody. I would never do that. I have enough common sense, but I'm pretty sure that I could get away. And I have a student, he's about 250 pounds, that loves me as his coach. I was able to promote him to blue belt before he moved to Idaho due to the pandemic. But, he loved to have me as his coach. He loved to see that way that I move. And for a 250-pound man to be learning the way that I move, that's going to be a totally different game, like you said. Yeah. So, I mean, I love training with men. I have no problem with it. I think it's a great thing.
What do your kids think about mom and dad training each other?
That's a nice question. I mean, it's always been, right? My kids have been on the mat since they were born. My daughter spent some time doing classes with me. Now she's 11, and I think she thinks I'm a little weird, but I think that's normal, right? Whether you're a doctor or a fisherman, your kid's going to think you're a little weird when they're 11. They're going to start to realize, hey, mom and dad, yeah, they're kind of kooky. My son and we wrestle all the time. It's one thing I can do with him that kind of just puts him in his happy place. He loves to be on the mat. He loves to wrestle. He's super fast. He's almost getting too fast for me, and he's like 6. He's like hard to control. He's so insistent on the pass, and he's had 0 formal classes. All he does is when there's people rolling back here, he just jumps in and he'll just start rolling with one of the guys or girls or whoever. He just wants to roll. And I hope that, I would love to see him go to a class and learn and put on a gi and do all that kind of stuff, but I don't want to take the joy out of it, because he has so much joy just jumping in, and he's learned solid technique just by feeling us do it to him. So I think it's a really beautiful thing.
I often say in that age is more of a learning without knowing that you're learning. Is that those natural habits like balance, stability, even mobility, those are the important ones. The technique easily will catch up. Similar if you're learning a language. It's the conversing was important. That words will follow shortly after. So I love to hear that. I mean, he's 6, you said, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
6.
just wait when he's 16. That's
He's
that's gonna
16, I'm gonna be done because I'll be 62 and this little woman, and he'll be bigger than me, and he's gonna be have been rolling for 16 years. I mean, the kid was in diapers back here armbarring people. Like, yeah.
That's awesome. So listen, so how are things going with this whole pandemic thing? I mean, this was a huge impact to everybody, right? But in your guys' case, where you guys teach, from your garage, combat base. First of all, I love all the stuff that you have there. Chris like showed us when we were talking to him all around. There's so much cool stuff. Like, man,
Yeah.
how are things
Yeah.
going? How are things going during the pandemic?
Well, I think one thing that Chris and I have never really wanted to put in the work to have an academy,
He did say that, yeah.
especially here. It is so expensive here, rent wise, electricity, whatever. Everything you do here in Los Angeles is very expensive. And where we live in the South Bay by the beach, we're very fortunate to live here. Because of family. And we don't have the funds to have a big, huge place around here. And it never really worked out. Some of the things that we've tried never really worked out, partnerships and different things. And, we don't have to worry about keeping the lights on at the academy. And, technically, we're supposed to be social distancing and wearing masks in LA as kind of an epicenter. The numbers are going down, but for a couple, like last month, it was really bad here in terms of our numbers of coronavirus cases. And my friends that worked at the hospital were just telling tragic tales. So I'm grateful that we don't have to worry about that aspect. But a huge percentage of our income is from Chris traveling around the world and teaching his
Mhm.
philosophy of jujitsu.
Hmm.
And he has students in Australia, in Europe, and throughout the United States. And all that stopped. He came home from Australia early when there was talk about closing the borders. That was in March. And we went down to no income at that point. Everything, I had a few other jobs. I was teaching science in elementary school and teaching fitness at a local health club. My jujitsu classes, everything stopped. All income stopped. So that was a really kind of a shock to the system. And how are we going to be okay? And thankfully, the government is good and they helped us out. And we got through that time. And over that time, Chris and I were brainstorming, and we had the help of our friend Marcus, who's a web designer. And we came up with this idea of the combat based club, which in my mind is long overdue,
Mhm.
because all we would have is just some people coming over here to roll. Did they pay? Did they not pay? I don't know, because I don't care, because it's not a business. We're just doing this because we do it. And the main thing is Chris traveling and teaching his seminars, and merchandise, geese and whatever. That was more the main thing. And my other things that I did, it wasn't about what we did here. This
Hmm.
isn't a legal academy space. This is our home. This is where people come over, our friends, and we roll. And it's actually kind of awesome. And like Sunday mornings, every Sunday morning, the music would be blaring. We'd sometimes have up to 30 people. We'd put mats outside too. And we would just have a great time rolling for hours, like half the day, you know? And so I miss that. But in some ways, it's like, oh, there's not people at my house all the time anymore. So that's kind of nice. In other ways, like this is our home and our family space. Um, so we created this concept of the combat based club, and we started doing some stuff on Zoom, and we started a few different video series, and we're hoping that this is something that can supplement once things die down and Chris is able to travel again. That this combat based club will stay around and be able to supplement training for people and people that want to be affiliated, loose affiliation, because I try to stay away from that word. I like to think of it more as a club, and we have members, because I really like that feeling of we're like all friends and we're together, and and like letting go of the feeling of hierarchy and rules and regulations. I like everybody who's come over here and who's one of Chris's students. It's like family, you know? And I don't like we've always been a little bit anti-structure. So that's why we never had any kind of like association in the past, because we're not about structure and regiment. We're more about like, do you be your own hero, advocate for yourself. You're going to get out of it what you put into it, like we were talking about before. That's our philosophy. That's what we stand for. And so if somebody's there saying this is the way you need to do this and this is the way you need to do that, it kind of takes away from that feel, from that vibe. So anyways, that's what has been born out of the pandemic, is the combat base club, the ability to, to train under us, and we can connect virtually until we can connect in person again.
But I think even beyond that, I'm listening to you and I'm trying to kind of visualize all of this. And I've seen you guys record a bunch of videos on social media and all the other things. So we'll post the link to the Combat Base Club in the show notes. So anybody who wants to take a look at it, I encourage you guys to take a look. But I think what is even beyond all this, you are documenting Chris's philosophy. And in some aspect, like I'm completely geeked out. Like I know who Chris is. I've known of him for decades. I mean, he played a fundamental role in what jiu-jitsu looks like today in the United States, right? So it's like you're going beyond the technique, you're going beyond the club, and and with that being said, like I want to congratulate you on this, because there were so many huge personalities and figures of jiu-jitsu in the world that nobody knows about. They just there and they disappear because it just ends, and nobody took time to understand who they are, even introduce them. And so you guys are going beyond that. You are actually documented into a visual form where people can actually see what you guys both do. So that's amazing. Congrats on that. That's huge.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate that feedback, and I agree with you. I think if it wasn't for Chris and his peers at that time, a lot of people wouldn't be training. I know
Oh,
I wouldn't be training. Chris started what he says one of the first women's programs here in Redondo Beach at the Machado Academy, and he was Cindy Omatsu's first coach. And there was a whole group of women training at that time, and when he was a brown belt, because he thought that this could be something more than meatheads and roid boys. And it is. It's so much more. It has provided so much more to so many people. Like my life insanity kind of depends on jujitsu. It is ingrained in me as something that I do, and that outlet. And I think that, for people who that is the right fit, which like we've said is not everyone, but there's so many more people out there that can benefit from doing something like this, because it is accessible, because people like Chris were the first ones to branch out from that.
Talk a little bit more about that. So you've mentioned this several times that it is a kind of a sanity check for you. You need to be on the mat. You need that outlet, right? So what happens if you don't? Right? Like we're in this pandemic. Like I know many people who have not stepped on the mat for literally last 8 months to a year. And for whatever their views are, that's irrelevant to all of this, right? They haven't trained. What happens in your mind when you don't train?
Well, I think the first word that I could think of is cranky.
And
Yep.
this explains my behavior.
Yes.
I get cranky. And I think that we get cranky because we need to have that physicality. Now, I think that there are things that we can do that aren't jujitsu to help us get through. And some of the things, because like I've broken my ankle before and been out for months. I've had 2 babies and I didn't roll as hard. I mean, yes, I still did some drills and things, But like I have a solo workout video, like high intensity interval training that I can do back here by myself. And I do a lot of jujitsu drills and things like that. And I think that that helps me. If I stop training and I don't do anything, I'm going to go nuts. Okay. I'm going to be suicidally depressed. I have to exercise. Even when I broke my ankle, I would limp back here on my crutches and I'd be doing upper body and core stuff just to move. And the other thing is meditation, because you can put yourself in a state almost like visualization or like you're training, but to be able to calm that crankiness. And it might be something that I have to do more than once a day. I might have to stop and take a time out and close my eyes and do some deep breathing and bring myself back to center, because I don't want to be a cranky bitch. And that's what happens when my world gets thrown off and I'm not doing my regular thing. Look, I really love going to the gym down the way and they leave the heat on at like 80 and we just sweat our brains out while we're rolling and we're breathing so hard. And like, that is the best feeling. I haven't done that in a year either. I just been rolling with mostly Chris, who's smashing my hips and giving me groin injuries and all kinds of stuff, trapping my arms up, even though I win a lot too. Once I get out of all that, I move around him and arm lock him really fast. Like that's the thing. I'm trying to play pressure against pressure. It ain't gonna work. I gotta, you know what I mean? So, anyways, I'm really lucky, but there have been times too where one of us isn't feeling well, and there's a few weeks go by and we have rolled zero, and like I notice I start to get cranky bitch. It happens.
Yep.
So if people take the time off, or they took the time,
No, I'm just thinking, it's funny because I don't know how many times I've been told, like, just get your effing bag and get out of the house, go, right? And great for you. You only got a few steps to the garage, but my wife is like,
Gary,
just
you
get
live
out of
like
the
2
house.
minutes from the academy.
Well, yeah, it's 4 minutes if I don't hit the stoplight, but it's not walking distance. But yeah, I mean, it's like, get out of here, go do what you love to do, because you're just driving me up a wall. She doesn't train, so she's like, just she can see it if I miss a few days or whatever. She's just like, get the hell out of here, will you? And cranky.
And I often hear from students like, oh, I'm not feeling good, or I'm doing this, or being sick is one thing, but I think that not feeling good in quotes, there is always often an excuse because we too lazy, or what do they say, Gary, what was that Thursday night?
Yeah, I think we quote Marcio Cruz a lot. It's Thursday night football, where like the biggest distractions are the couch, beer, and TV, and and people use those. They don't. That's not the excuse, but that's what they'd rather do, because it's hard to get out on the mat sometimes.
It's easy to not move. Yeah. So what would you say to people who haven't been training for a long time? Because that return, it has to be difficult.
Yeah, I would say join the Combat Base Club. Start doing my solo workout.
That's right.
I have so much fun. Let me just tell you, because I haven't taught a jiu-jitsu class in a year, but I started doing these solo workouts on Zoom, and I'm just having a great time, like, playing some music and getting my heart rate up. Actually, more than getting my heart rate up, I'm sweating, like drenched in sweat after, because I do a lot of jiu-jitsu drills, and I think that's the best thing. Like, if you haven't trained in a year, you need to start moving your body in patterns similar to what you do when you're training, because you don't want to go back and like throw your back out because your body's not used to doing something, but your mind thinks you can do it because you did it a year ago, but your conditioning is so bad. So like, that's the thing. When the pandemic first started, I was a little out of shape because I had been working at the school a lot and I wasn't on the mat as much. And I was rolling with Chris and I was losing every single time. And I was like, this cannot be happening. I am not going to lose every single time. So I started doing HIIT workouts on YouTube. And, within the matter of a month, my game completely came back because of my conditioning. So it's like a lot of people say, conditioning doesn't matter because we're being technical, but it absolutely matters.
Of course it does.
If I go like run on the beach, like maybe that could help, but doing sport specific exercises, I think can go a lot further. So mimicking the movement patterns.
And there's plenty of them. I mean, combat base is one of the options, but you can go on YouTube and you can find a million
Yes.
million videos. Like, it does not take a lot. It doesn't.
No, it's super easy. It takes no effort. I mean, you need a small space in your house, your TV or your phone. You put it on, you press play, and there you go. You just got to get up and move your ass. You can't be sitting around eating bonbons and drinking beer and watching TV and expecting that you're going to have an easy transition back to your training program. So I highly recommend that everyone put in the time, and it doesn't take a lot of time. You could do 30 minutes, 30 minutes a day or something like that, but that it's going to be better for your overall health, and you're going to feel better when you go back to training.
You tell them.
Yeah.
Oh, Melisa.
Yeah.
Hey, are you as tough on the mat as you are right now?
Yeah.
I bet.
I love it. I love it.
Especially when I roll with my husband. It gets really like he likes to talk a lot of shit. Like he's always been that way ever since
I can imagine.
talking shit the whole time. The whole time we're rolling. And I'm like, what? Like he tries to get in your head. It's just like a thing. I mean, I don't know if he does that with everybody or if he does it mostly with me. I think he does it with people that he's really close with, right? He just tries to get in their head. And anyways.
That's so funny. That has to be a blast. I mean, like I'm just trying to visualize this. Like you and him rolling. It's such a personal time for both of you. One, two, you training with him. You've trained with him for how many years?
18?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
18 years. I mean,
Yeah.
that's mind blowing. Is
Yeah.
that like your time between you two?
It's part of it. I don't know. Sometimes it feels more like work, like we're working because it's like our whole business and everything. So a lot of
Oh, I
times
see.
we train around a Zoom session. Like we do our Zoom and then we train, or we do our video shoot and then we train, or we have a private, we do virtual private, we have a virtual private and then we train. So a lot of times it's part of work, or it's like, but it is, we like this morning we had a lot of fun. Sometimes it's not fun. If I'm mad at him or something, it's not that fun.
You get
Like
mad
if
at him?
yeah, so sometimes if he starts to get the better, like the upper hand, and I'm like real mad or something, sometimes it's not that fun, or sometimes like if he's feeling better than me and he wants to keep going, and I'm like, I'm tired, I get a little bit bitchy. Sometimes it is really nice. Like I do miss my friend Casey, who's like 115 pounds, and it's a much, easier on my joints kind of, but still technically really fun roll. Like I miss that, you know.
When do you think all this is gonna go back? When do you think everything is gonna go back to the point where you can train with everybody you like?
Well, Chris is saying he thinks it'll be the summertime when things are better, and I know a lot of people are business as usual, and the pandemic hasn't really interfered too much with their training. My friend today, we had someone on our Zoom that is from England, and he said that yesterday the police came and arrested a bunch of people at the gym, and they
Oh,
actually went to jail and had to
Yeah.
pay a fee to get out of jail because they were training. I thought that was, I don't imagine anything like that happening here. Um, but at the same time, for my personal health reasons and things like that, I'm choosing not to go to a gym and not to have a ton of people over. I'd like to slowly integrate it back, and hopefully, I mean, I want to get vaccinated and my husband does too, and I'm thinking if the numbers continue to go down and more people are vaccinated or have already had it or whatever, that we should be good by late spring, early summer. And at the same time, I don't know if I want to go back to having people here all the time because
Mhm.
you think
it,
that kind of by default worked out into this, situation where you don't have people over and now you enjoy it?
It's a silver lining, maybe, right?
yeah, I mean, I really loved, like I said, I really loved our Sunday mornings, our regular Sunday mornings. And I'd like to be able to incorporate it like on a scheduled basis rather than everybody just shows up on your house. It's kind of like teenager.
Mhm.
Everybody just shows up at the Howders on Sunday morning. That's where we go. Like we're not teenagers. Like
Mhm.
it's time to grow up. Like I have a little girl who's almost a teenager. Are we really going to do this forever? Where Howders house Sunday morning, um, or can we say, hey, the first Sunday of the month, guys, come over? You know what I mean? Like make it a little bit more so it's not quite so, I don't know.
Like free for all party house.
Free for all. Yeah, I don't want it to be a free for all party house, but I still want to be able to have parties, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you just got to slow it down a little bit and contain it, right? It can't be the massive house party it used to be. It's just got to be a little bit more of a get together.
I have to ask, do you invite these people or they just show up because they know you?
They show up. Well, I mean, like, somebody comes over and we're like, yeah, it's cool you're here. Okay. Like, we have waivers because, we got to worry about.
Yeah, you still got insurance, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we got to worry about that kind of stuff. But like for the first 10 years, we didn't have waivers. I don't know. We have waivers now because the attorney was like, you need a waiver or you need to stop doing that. So we're like, okay, we'll get a waiver. I mean, people will hit me up sometimes, be like, is it cool if I bring my friend over? Yeah. People hit us up randomly from Facebook or Instagram. Oh, I've always wanted to come to your garage. And then we got people, and that's just in the post-pandemic age. I don't know if that's really cool. I honestly would prefer if people would pay for a private. I think that would help us out a lot more financially because these people come by and like, do they buy a shirt? Maybe. Do they kick us down a donation? Maybe. But it would be a lot more valuable for us if we gave them a private lesson and they paid for private and they actually get something out of it.
This is to me, this is a very California thing. Does this fly anywhere else? Do you know what I mean? This is so like, because you could take the jiu-jitsu out of it and make it an artist colony. You could take, you know what I mean? It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It just sounds so California. It does not sound Midwest at all. If you showed up at my door, well, not me personally, but if you showed up at somebody else's door on a Sunday morning saying you wanted to train, you probably wouldn't get any training. You might be running back to the car.
Yeah, I don't know. Chris and I have like in the last 18 years, I mean, it's always been like we've had people living with us. We're taking in homeless. This is just who we are. Mm-hmm. And I guess boundaries aren't something we're super great at. And that's another thing. Like, it's really hard to run a successful business when you have no boundaries. Mm-hmm. Sure, I'll be your coach. Sure, I'll fly out to your academy and promote your students. Oh, just give me some money.
Pay for whatever.
Ticket. Like, that does not work. That is not the business model to be financially independent and successful and raise a family in Southern California. It doesn't work, and so that's why all these years, like I had my own business for years. I've had all these side jobs. I've done all this crap. I didn't want to run the combat-based business too. Mm-hmm. I was just like, Chris, do whatever you want. And Chris is just like, whatever, guys. And people were attracted to him because he's so whatever about it. He's so like, sure, you need a coach, I'm here.
Mr. Personality. I mean, his personality is so big that it's hard not to. So
yeah, but like in terms of let's sit down and let's say, hey guys, if you want Chris to be your coach, this is how much it costs.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, this is where we get into the serious topic, right? Is like, I mean, business is business, right? And in some sense, both you and Chris, hold on to the intellectual property of jiu-jitsu, whatever your philosophy, the way how you think, the way how you see things, and there is a value associated with that. So looking from business perspective, anybody who is learning from you in some capacity, there should be a price tag on it, and you should be compensated for your knowledge, your time, your expertise, and your effort. And I'm hoping that in some capacity, the combat-based club will really offset a lot of that and will bring a lot of success for you, because it should. I know. Yeah, I know. I'm gonna call you next time I'm in California. I'm doing privates with both of you.
Yeah, that'd be great. We'd love to do that.
I'll make sure he pays you too.
Oh, Gary.
Yeah, I think getting better at that, but that's something that had to evolve. It evolved from Chris just sleeping on somebody's couch. He was willing to do that until he hit about 50. He's like, I can't sleep on another couch. If I go on a seminar, I need to have a hotel. I need to have somewhere where I can go back and chill. And it makes sense. I mean, like it could be fun at first, but he got some popularity and he was buzzing here and there. And it's sleeping on couches and it wasn't so good. So, so eventually he started to become a little more particular, saying he needs a hotel, and now we've got our club, and I'm hoping that will, help us to just have a little bit more structure from the business perspective, as well as provide a service to people. Like on our website for the academies that are members or training groups of our club, we have a place for them to advertise, and they can use all of our graphics, like our combat base logo, and all of the artwork that Chris does. He's also an exceptional artist. I know you mentioned the things on the walls. A lot of the stuff on the wall is his artwork, his original artwork. And so I think that we have a lot to offer, and it's a different kind of brand, and we hope to provide a different kind of feel. So
I'm pretty confident as time goes on, you guys both will be successful. You've accomplished so much so far, and I think this is just next stepping stone towards the awesome. So that's how I look at least. So listen, Melisa, before we wrap this up, before we finish the show, we and I don't know if Chris told you, he might have, but we do this little surprise at the end of the show. We have 5 questions for you. We didn't tell you about this. Simple questions. We'll just ask you to answer first thing that comes to your mind. Sometimes small conversation generates off of that. Some of them are funny. Some of them are serious.
She looks really surprised.
But it's just, we kind of go with the flow here.
Yeah. No, and they're fun questions. So there are 5 of them, and I'll start with the first one that we always ask. And it is, what was it like the first time you stepped on the mat?
Well, the first time I stepped on the mat was in that 1-car garage with Chris. Now, when I saw Chris, I was pretty much love at first sight. I didn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. I thought he was a burn victim. Okay, he had those cauliflower ears. I didn't know what that was about. Okay, but there was something about him that had me instantly, and I was like, this guy wants to rub his body on me. I'm excited. Right, just being honest.
That's the most unique answer we've had for that question.
Oh,
all right.
Awesome.
Number 2, what has been your most rewarding achievement? Jiu-jitsu or not jiu-jitsu?
Jiu-jitsu or not? Well,
in life, whatever it is.
I'm
being a mom.
Yeah. Like that's got to be number 1, having those little brats drive me nuts all the time. That it is a lot of work. And when I watch them do things, like when I watch my son, he does parkour and he can climb up like 20 feet on poles and do all this crazy stuff, and he's flipping, and he can do like 30 cartwheels in a row, and watching him swim, or my daughter, and how what a self-directed learner she is, and how she's so easygoing. When I see these kids that really, they're completely polar opposites. It has very little to do with me, but I get to be their mom.
That's great. Have you ever wanted to quit?
No.
All right.
Quit life maybe, but jiu-jitsu, no.
Jiu-jitsu, no. Well, you can't, right? You're married to your professor. Describe your feelings. We didn't talk about this, and we usually get to it at some point in the show, but describe your feelings when you received your black belt.
It's about damn time.
Oh, yeah?
No, I don't know. I felt really ready for it. At that time I was competing in the brown black division, because it was brown and black together. And I'd beaten some black belts in competition, and I was like, I'm ready. I deserve this. It was a proper amount of time. I think I'd been a brown belt a couple of years. It was the right amount of time. I was ready, and I was excited. Now, that's how I felt when I received it. And then once I got it, it's like, oh my God, now I'm like the target in the room.
Okay, nice. And then last and final question is, do you wash your belt?
No.
Yeah. All right.
It's a listen, we've had a lot of different answers.
Do you not wash it for the same reason that Chris doesn't wash his? Is that if you have a natural cotton belt, you don't have to let it air out? Or is it the superstition reasons? What's the reason?
Okay. When I first met Chris, we didn't even wash our gis.
Right?
We would just hang them out on the porch to dry. Now, I don't think Chris had the best hygiene, or that he still does not have the best hygiene. I have to tell him to take a shower. Now, I know I'm not the only woman who has to tell their husband to take a shower, but yeah, eventually I was like, we got to wash these things every time. And I actually contracted staph infection a few times. And I was like, yeah, we need to wash and clean the mats and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like the hygiene police. However, it's kind of like traditional, I guess, and the way that I was raised in jiu-jitsu, that you don't wash your belt because it has the sweat from every roll that you've ever had. That's what he told me. Okay, he's saying because it's cotton. Bullshit. It was because it has the sweat from every single roll that you've ever done in that belt. That's what he told me.
Oh, well, he gave us a completely different answer. So you can take that up.
We should bring him in here right now. Oh, that's so funny.
He told one of the guys to put their belt in the microwave. And it didn't come out so good.
I bet. Why? What's the purpose? I don't understand.
Sterilize it. I don't know. He told
in the microwave. Sterilize it in the microwave.
Yeah, maybe you should try sterilizing your belt in the microwave, and I guess it ruined the belt.
I'm sure.
Yeah. Gary, we're gonna go Facebook Live. We're gonna put a belt in the microwave. Let's see what happens.
We're not gonna put my belt in the microwave. I'll get one from the back of the academy, but we're not gonna put my belt in the no.
Yeah, you guys do it.
Oh, Melisa, thank you so much for being here. This was a blast. I love it. Listen, before we depart or part ways, where can people find you? Where can people connect with you? If there are any females out there who do want to talk to you, Combat Base Club, where is it? How? Where do we find you?
You can find me I'm on Instagram, Melisa Haueter. I'm on Facebook, Melisa Haueter, and my business, combatbase.com. And through there, you can also email. I'm the one who receives all the emails from info@combatbase. So, male, female, whoever you want to have a chat. I feel like the Combat-Based Club, what we're all about is supporting people in their jiu-jitsu journey, whether they're an individual and they belong to, an academy where they're really locked in, or there's somebody that needs a coach. Like, we're just here to support people. If they have a question, if they want to connect with us over the internet, whatever, if they want to stop by and do a private once the pandemic is over, we're here, to support people and give them our perspective and our take and our experience.
That's awesome.
Fantastic. Love it.
Awesome. Once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing the amazing, amazing stories. I had a blast. Gary was on the floor a few times. It was awesome.
Yeah, good times. Good times. It was exactly what I was hoping for. So thank you.
Listen, Melisa, if you guys are ever in the Midwest, Chicago area, let us know. I would love to have you. There. Yeah, I would love to have you in my academy for a seminar. Let me know when all this kind of balls over and you guys are traveling and doing all that. Let's connect. I would love to have you.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, it'll be a good time.
All right.
Yep, for sure.
Well, thanks for being here once again. Let's wrap this up for today. Great chat, and take care of yourself.
Take care, Melisa. Thank you so much. Thank you. Whoa. Hold on. Like we said, we would announce the next winner of the Fuji gi giveaway. And here we are to do that. So open up your ears. You got 72 hours to respond. And I wanted to mention real quick. So you can only enter one time.
What?
We've had
multiple rules are these?
People are trying to pad the numbers here. So just one time. And,
listen, we looked at the numbers. We're not going to say who it is, but there were some duplicates. Not only that, there were some people who entered 3 times.
Some people who entered, yes, they do wash their gi, and no, they don't wash their gi.
Make up your mind. Is this kind of scam to skew our numbers?
Well, or not gi, but belt. Yeah, I think what happens is they're like me, and it's like if you really enjoy the guest and you understand the reasons for them not washing or washing, you're like, oh yeah.
Hey, maybe every time they wash their gi, they go to the site and they enter whether they washed it or they didn't. Well, hopefully they don't wash their gi twice a month.
Oh no. Yeah. And we keep saying gi. It's wash your belt. Do you wash your belt? And it's for the free Fuji gi giveaway. So I am going to get us a random number. And here we go. Where's the drum roll? Number 32. Number 32.
So let's
Who do
take a
we
look.
have?
Let's take a look. If your email address ends with or78.hg@gmail, if your email address ends with or78.hg@gmail, man, that's a handful. That's a mouthful. One more time, or78.hg@gmail. You're the winner. You're the winner. You got 72 hours to respond to us. Check your inbox. There should be a message from us shortly.
Yes.
And we respond within 72 hours. You can pick any gi you want from Fuji Sports. And by the way, thank you, Fuji Sports, for supporting us, doing this amazing giveaway, and really making this show possible. Without you, well, I wouldn't have this awesome t-shirt.
Yeah, that's a pretty handsome shirt you got there.
And you guys wouldn't have the gis. This
That's
is
right.
number 2 winner, and there's plenty more coming. So if you haven't subscribed, if you haven't dropped your email address yet, do it. Do it once and stick with your answer.
TheROLRadio.com/belt. And we will send you an email because I know Thomas flubbed that email a few times. So don't panic if you think it was yours or it wasn't. Just keep checking your email. You will get something from us to let you know. And then 72 hours to respond back. And we'll get that gi on its way.
And if not, maybe I did it intentionally, so I get the gi.
I wouldn't put it past you. All right, let's wrap this up. I hope they really enjoy it. And congratulations.
Thank you for listening to RŌL Radio. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review and help us make the show even more amazing. For future episodes, check out our website and follow us on all major podcast platforms. Take care.